Good morning. Over the next few weeks, I want to talk to you about love and marriage. We've been taught that love is a different thing than what it actually should be and what it was meant to be. We've been taught that love hurts, love, tears us apart. Don't fall in love because you're just gonna, lose that person. We've been taught fear, the fear of love. And what that fear has done is actually built a wall around the center of our hearts, which is where we should be holding ourselves. And if you know God, that's where He would be. And if we have a significant other, that's where that person should be sitting, is in that center with you. That's why they call them soulmates, is because you're one. You're two that have become one. So, in order for us to realize what we need to do in relationships, we need to learn to love the right way. And in order to do that, we're going to have to tear down that wall. So that's what I want to do over the next few weeks, is talk about what love is supposed to be, and try to change perspectives on that. And then ways to, help your marriage with prayer, or help your marriage with, what it is supposed to be. Because if we can get these things back to where they should be, then they're going to work properly, and they're going to work the right way, and they're going to be things that endure instead of things that are only a few months or a couple of years. And the ultimate goal was to, meet one person and fall in love and be married forever, and we just don't see that anymore. So let's start with 1 Corinthians 13:4-7, which is one of the biggest love verses of all. They even say it at weddings, even if you're not a Christian, because it says what love should be, and that this is the way that it should be. But let me read you the whole verse, and then I'm going to go through a few points about it. It says, "Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes in all things, hopes all things, and endures all things." Wow, that actually says a lot, because, these days when we look at marriage and love, people aren't enduring. They step into it thinking, well, if this doesn't work, I'll just move on. Yeah, we've learned to skip across people instead of actually letting them in. So we need to learn to love ourselves the way that love is supposed to be, so that we can project that out into the world, so then that's what we will attract. So, love is patient and kind. That means that it takes its time, it thinks about its words, it doesn't try to change you, it's patient with who you are, and it says kind things. It doesn't say rude things, it doesn't boast, we've heard all the negative things. It doesn't do all those things. It's supposed to uplift us. It is supposed to be kind and produce a larger courage within us. And that's what positive things do, is it produces courage and hope, and it helps us bear all things and get through all things. So learning to be patient and kind with ourselves will help us to learn to be patient and kind with others, and then in turn we will get that back from others. And once we start to produce that and project that out into the world, this patience and kindness, we'll start to see that giving that patience and kindness, it's a lot more productive for us, period. Because not just because we're going to get it back, but because we're loving and feeling in the right ways. Another part of that verse says it endures all and it bears all. And that doesn't mean all the bad things. Like somebody cheating on you or somebody hurting you. You should endure those things and get through them, yes. But the way that you do that is through your emotions. And being able to feel every emotion that there is, good and bad, is good for the center of your heart. It's good for your body. It's good for your whole well-being. Having that wall up and blocking those emotions isn't good for you. It's going to sit there back behind that wall and start to build up. I told someone once that I really didn't want anyone standing there when my wall decided to come down, because what was going to happen was going to be this just tremendous flood, and they're going to get overwhelmed, and I'm going to kill anyone who's around me with as much as going to flood out there. That's what we've been taught to do, is to hold those things back. And like my mom used to tell me not to cry. She used to yell at me when I cried. I wasn't allowed to cry, so I learned not to cry. And that's actually not good for you, because when I finally did cry, it lasted days. I felt like I was having a nervous breakdown. It just burst out in a flood, and it wouldn't stop. But once I got all that out and I got that wall down, now, it's not like I cry all the time, but I cry more easily. I love more easily. I respond more easily to people. I respond more easily to all of my emotions, and I handle them better. I'm part Irish, so yeah, I do have a temper, but I learned to respond to that temper better once I took that wall down. When I had that wall up, my temper would flare, and wow, my brothers and sisters, I'm the youngest, my brothers and sisters would go running for my mom every time when my temper would flare up. And yeah, no one would want to be around me, and I would hurt people. And that's not good. That's not what love is. That's not how you're supposed to treat your family, your significant other, or your kids. And so what we need to do is learn a new perspective on that love the way that it's supposed to be, which is unconditional and forgiving. Those are two things that we need to do with our love, and they're two of the hardest things that there is to do. So how do we learn to love unconditionally? Well, if you start following this verse, Corinthians 13:4-7, and you start, being kind and patient, not boastful, don't envy, which means jealousy. If you start to hope and endure more things within yourself, then you'll start to love yourself unconditionally. Even when, you do something that you don't like, you'll stop saying those negative things to yourself that are helping to build up that wall. You'll start saying more positive things. Wow, you know what? Just because I did this doesn't mean I'm not an awesome person, or that, I'm not still a good person. People make mistakes. You'll start forgiving yourself, start forgiving others, and you'll start seeing others with the kind of love that you have for yourself. And once we start to develop that, we'll be able to develop a healthy relationship outside of us. And we'll be able to start allowing people into the center of our hearts. And that is the main purpose of love. We all pray for love in our lives, but what we realize is it's not love that we need to receive from someone else. That love that we're feeling that ache for is actually the love that we need to have for ourselves. Because once we have love for ourselves, then we become whole. And once we're whole, there's no longer that need to have someone else in your life to fulfill that hole in your heart or fill you up. I used to tell people that friendships and people are like in groups. When you look at people, you can tell when someone is full or empty. And the full person will be able to stand by themselves in the crowd and not have to have others around them and talking to them, being loud, or trying to fill that space. They can fill it on their own, but they don't have to be loud. They don't have to attract other people's attention. And those are full people, and those are people that have learned to love themselves. Empty people, you'll see them, they will be really loud. They'll have a lot of people around them. They won't be able to move in that crowd without having someone else with them. And that's because they're feeling empty within themselves. They don't have the security and love for themselves to be able to stand there on their own and take up that space. They need to gather other people to fill that space with them. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. We all grow and learn to become full people. But in the world today, we're not being taught to do that. We're being taught to always have someone with us, to put that wall up and not be completely whole, even though we think we are. So instead of having false fullness, We need to learn to have a secure, real wholeness within ourselves, and that comes from this section of verses, the love for ourselves. Once we find that love for ourselves, we become a whole person, and then we'll be able to search for love outside of ourselves. So, what I want for you this week, and what I hope and pray, is that the Lord will fill you and help you find that love for yourself, help you understand the words of this verse, help you understand the world around you and how you love and what created that wall within you, so that you can take it down, you can bear all, and learn to love yourself unconditionally and forgive yourself. In Jesus' name I pray for you all of that this week. And if you'd like to talk to me, my email is hmweimer@yahoo.com. I'd be glad to talk to anybody and go into more depth about the things that I talk about. Or you can find me on Facebook, HM Weimar. I thank you for listening today. Have a good week.